She told me you're my papa. Is it true? The little boy asked the cowboy. The boy stands in the dust outside Hartwell's general store, clutching a crumpled photograph between his small fingers. The afternoon air hangs thick and still, broken only by the distant sound of horses and the creak of weathered wood. His voice cuts through the silence like a blade drawn from its sheath. She told me you're my papa. Is it true? The cowboy freezes completely, his coffee cup suspended halfway to his lips. His weathered hands begin to tremble, causing the dark liquid to ripple in dangerous circles. The words seem to strike him like a physical blow. Who told you that, son? Mama. Before the fever took her. The photograph trembles between Samuel's fingers. It shows a woman with dark eyes and a gentle smile, standing beside a younger version of the man before him. Thomas stares at the image as if seeing a ghost materialize in broad daylight. What's your name, boy? Samuel. Samuel Creek. The coffee cup hits the ground and shatters into a dozen pieces. Hot liquid splashes across Thomas's worn boots, but he doesn't seem to notice the burn. His face drains of all color. Creek? That ain't possible. She said you'd know her. Said your name was Thomas Briggs. Thomas backs against the store wall like a cornered animal, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Other townspeople begin to notice the commotion, their conversations stopping mid-sentence as whispers start to spread like wildfire through the small crowd. Where's your mama now? Cemetery Hill. Been there 3 weeks. Who's been taking care of you? Been taking care of myself. Mama taught me how. Thomas looks down at the boy and really sees him for the first time. The same green eyes stare back with unsettling intensity, the same stubborn jaw, the same way of holding his shoulders when the world feels too big and hostile. Jesus Christ. She said you'd remember the old oak tree. Said you promised her things. The whispers grow louder and more insistent. Thomas notices Sheriff Morrison emerging from the saloon across the street, his badge catching the sunlight like a warning signal. The lawman's eyes narrow as he takes in the scene. Son, we can't talk here. Why not? Because some truths ain't meant for crowds. Samuel doesn't move an inch. His small frame radiates a determination that makes grown men shift uncomfortably and look away. She said you were brave once. Said you fought for what was right. Your mama said a lot of things. Was she lying? The question hangs in the air like gun smoke. Sheriff Morrison's boots click closer across the wooden planks. No, son. She wasn't lying. Sheriff Morrison's shadow falls across them both like a dark cloud blocking the sun. His presence changes the air around them, making everything feel heavier and more dangerous. Problem here, Briggs? Thomas doesn't take his eyes off Samuel, as if looking away might make the boy disappear. No problem, Sheriff. Heard some interesting conversation. Boy making claims. Samuel steps forward, small but completely unafraid. His chin tilts up in defiance. I ain't making claims. I'm asking questions. Morrison crouches down slowly, bringing his badge to Samuel's eye level. The metal gleams like a threat. Where you staying, boy? The old Matthews cabin. Mama rented it before she got sick. That place been empty 2 years. Not anymore. Thomas finally speaks, his voice rough as gravel grinding under wagon wheels. Sheriff, the boy's telling the truth about his mama. Emma Creek. I knew her. Morrison stands slowly, his hand coming to rest on his gun belt in a gesture that looks casual but isn't. Emma Creek's been dead and buried, Tom. Whole town saw to that. 3 weeks ago, Samuel adds quietly. That's impossible. Emma Creek died in the fever outbreak. 7 years back. Samuel's eyes flash with confusion and growing anger. That's a lie. Boy, you calling me a liar? I'm calling you wrong. Thomas steps between them before the confrontation can escalate further. Sheriff, maybe we should. Maybe you should explain how a dead woman had a living son. The tension thickens like storm clouds gathering overhead. Other townspeople begin to gather at a safe distance, sensing drama but afraid to get too close to whatever's unfolding. Samuel reaches into his pocket and pulls out a folded paper, yellowed with age and wear. "She left me this. Said to give it to you if anything happened." Thomas takes the letter with trembling hands. His eyes scan the familiar handwriting, and his face goes completely white. "What's it say, Tom?" Thomas looks up at Morrison, then down at Samuel, then back at the letter. "It says the fever didn't kill her. Says she was made to disappear." "That's enough." Morrison's voice turns dangerous and low. "Both of you need to move along." "Who made her disappear?" Samuel's voice carries a strength that doesn't belong to a 7-year-old child. "Son, some questions don't have safe answers. But they have true ones." Thomas folds the letter carefully, as if it might crumble to dust. "Sheriff, I'm taking the boy home." "Which home would that be, Tom? Yours or his?" The question cuts deep like a blade between ribs. Samuel looks up at Thomas with eyes that demand complete honesty. "Mine," Thomas says finally. "He's coming to mine." Thomas's cabin sits at the edge of town, where the land turns wild and unforgiving. The structure feels small and lonely against the vast emptiness beyond. Samuel follows him inside, still clutching the photograph like a lifeline. "Sit down, son." Samuel perches on the edge of a wooden chair, his legs barely reaching the floor. The cabin smells of coffee and loneliness. Thomas pours himself whiskey with shaking hands. "Your mama, Emma, she wasn't just any woman. She was everything to me. She was everything to a lot of people. And that made her dangerous." Samuel's eyes narrow with suspicion. "Dangerous how?" "She knew things. About the men who run this town. About where the money really comes from." Thomas opens the letter again, reading silently before speaking. His face grows darker with each line. "She worked for Governor Crawford's family. Up at the big house on the hill." "Doing what?" "Taking care of their books. Their private books." "What's wrong with keeping books?" Thomas sits across from him, suddenly looking older than his years. The weight of secrets ages a man faster than time. "Nothing, if the numbers are honest. But Crawford's weren't. Your mama found out he was stealing from the territory. Stealing from families who lost their land." Samuel processes this information with the seriousness of an adult. "So she was gonna tell someone?" "She was gonna tell everyone. Had documents, proof, everything needed to bring him down." "What happened?" "Crawford found out. Had his men pay her a visit. Told her to keep quiet or disappear forever. But she didn't disappear. She had me." Thomas's face crumples slightly. "She did disappear, son. 7 years ago. They staged her death, made everyone believe she died in the fever. Then they forced her out of town. With me in her belly. With you in her belly." The weight of this revelation settles over them both like a heavy blanket. The silence stretches until Samuel breaks it. "She spent 7 years hiding. Moving from place to place. Never staying long enough for Crawford's men to find you both. Why'd she come back?" "Because she was dying, and she wanted you to know the truth. About me. About her. About why your family got torn apart." Samuel stands up, pacing the small room with newfound energy. "She said you were brave once. I was young once. Young and stupid. What's the difference?" Thomas almost smiles. "Young men fight battles they can't win. Brave men fight battles that matter." "Does this battle matter?" "Son, you are this battle." Outside, the sound of approaching horses echoes through the evening air. Multiple riders moving with purpose. "They know you're here," Thomas says quietly. "Good," Samuel replies, his small hands balling into fists. "I got questions for them too." 3 riders circle the cabin like vultures waiting for death. Their horses' hooves kick up dust that settles like a shroud over everything, creating an ominous haze in the fading light. Thomas moves to the window, his hand instinctively reaching for the rifle above the mantel. "Stay away from the windows, son. I ain't hiding. You ain't dying either. Not on my watch." A voice calls out from the darkness beyond the porch. "Thomas Briggs. We know you got the boy." Samuel recognizes the voice immediately. "That's Sheriff Morrison. Figured as much. You gonna let them in?" "Not planning on it." Another voice cuts through the air, smoother and more dangerous than Morrison's rough bark. "Mr. Briggs, Governor Crawford would like a word." Thomas's jaw tightens until the muscles stand out like cords. "Crawford." Samuel moves closer to the window despite Thomas's warning. "Which one's the governor?" "The one in the middle. Fancy hat, fancy coat. Thinks he owns everything he can see." "Does he?" "He owns everything he can buy or steal. Your mama died proving that." The governor's voice carries an authority meant to intimidate lesser men. "We're here about some stolen property. Documents that don't belong to a dead woman." Samuel's eyes flash with pure rage. "She ain't property." "Quiet, son." "I won't be quiet. They killed my mama." Thomas grabs Samuel's shoulders, his voice urgent and low. "Listen to me. Your mama spent 7 years keeping you safe. Don't waste that sacrifice on anger." "Then what do I do with it?" "You use it. But you use it smart." The governor calls out again, his patience wearing thin. "We can do this easy or hard, Briggs. Your choice." Thomas looks down at Samuel, seeing Emma's fierce determination reflected in the boy's green eyes. "What would your mama do?" Samuel thinks for a moment. "She'd make them tell the truth." "How?" "By not being afraid of it herself." Thomas nods slowly. "That's right. She would." He moves to the door, rifle in hand. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done 7 years ago." Thomas opens the door but doesn't step outside. The 3 men sit on their horses like judges at a trial. "Governor Crawford. Sheriff Morrison. And you must be Jake Collins, the governor's personal problem solver." Collins tips his hat mockingly. "Reputation precedes me. So does your smell." Samuel appears beside Thomas, small but completely defiant. "That's Emma's boy," Morrison says quietly. Crawford studies Samuel with cold calculation. "He looks like his mother." "He acts like her too," Thomas replies. "That could be a problem." Samuel steps forward boldly. "I got something to say." "Samuel, no. They killed my mama for telling the truth. What's the worst they can do to me for doing the same?" Crawford leans forward in his saddle. "Boy, you don't know what you're talking about. I know you're a thief. I know you're a liar. And I know you're scared of a dead woman and a little boy." The words hang in the air like a challenge no one can ignore. Crawford's horse stamps nervously, sensing its rider's growing tension. The animal's nostrils flare as if smelling fear. "Boy's got a mouth on him," Collins observes with cold amusement. "Gets it from his mama," Thomas replies. Samuel reaches into his shirt and pulls out a small leather pouch, weathered and carefully protected. "She didn't just leave me a letter. She left me these." Thomas's eyes widen as Samuel opens the pouch, revealing a collection of folded documents, each one carefully preserved. "Son, where did those come from?" "Mama sewed them into my coat lining. Said they were insurance." Crawford's face goes pale as death. "Those belong to the territory." "No," Samuel says firmly. "They belong to the truth." Morrison dismounts quickly, his hand moving to his weapon. "Boy, hand those over right now." "Or what? You'll kill me like you killed my mama." "We didn't kill your mama," Crawford says quickly. "She died of fever." Samuel unfolds one of the documents, his reading clear and loud enough for everyone to hear. Territorial Fund Transfer. $5,000. From Public Works to Crawford Private Account. Signed by Governor Crawford. That's enough. Collins draws his gun in one swift motion. Thomas raises his rifle to meet the threat. I wouldn't. There are 3 of us, Tom. And there's the whole town watching from behind their windows. Indeed, faces peer out from the general store, the saloon, and the boarding house. Word has spread quickly through the community. Samuel continues reading with devastating calm. Land seizure authorization. Creek Family Farm. Reason for seizure: unpaid taxes. Taxes paid in full. Receipt attached. Seizure date: same day as Mama's supposed death. Crawford's composure finally cracks. Those are forgeries. Mama's handwriting, Samuel says. She kept copies of everything. Thomas looks at the documents with growing amazement. Emma was smarter than any of us knew. She was planning something, Samuel continues. Before they stopped her. She was gonna expose all of it. Morrison shifts uncomfortably in his saddle. Governor, maybe we should. Maybe you should remember who signs your paychecks, Crawford snaps. Samuel holds up another document. Sheriff Morrison. Monthly payment. $500. Source: Crawford Private Fund. Service: look the other way. Morrison's face flushes red with anger and shame. That's a lie. It's your signature. The crowd behind the windows grows larger. Whispers carry on the evening breeze like wildfire. Thomas steps closer to Samuel, protective but proud. Your mama documented everything, didn't she? She said powerful men get careless when they think they're safe. Crawford's horse paces restlessly beneath him. What do you want? Samuel looks up at Thomas, then back at the governor. I want my mama's name cleared. I want the truth told. And I want you to pay for what you did. Boys got demands, Collins says with dark amusement. Boys got evidence, Thomas corrects. Samuel holds up the final document, his young voice carrying the weight of justice. And I got Mama's last letter. The one that names everyone involved. Including the federal marshal she sent copies to before she died. Crawford's world begins to crumble with that single sentence. The silence stretches like a taut wire ready to snap. Every breath feels dangerous in the heavy air. Crawford dismounts slowly, his movements careful and calculated. What federal marshal? Samuel's smile is small but devastating. Marshal Harrison. From the Capitol. Mama said he doesn't take kindly to territorial governors who steal from widows and orphans. Collins and Morrison exchange nervous glances that don't go unnoticed. Harrison's been sniffing around for months, Morrison whispers urgently to Crawford. I know that. Crawford hisses back. Thomas lowers his rifle slightly. Emma planned this whole thing, didn't she? Her return, the timing, everything. Samuel nods with certainty. She knew she was dying. Wanted to make sure the truth wouldn't die with her. Crawford's desperation becomes palpable. What do you want? Money. Land. I can make you rich. Can you make my mama alive? Samuel. Can you give me back 7 years of having a papa? Thomas's eyes fill with unexpected emotion at the raw pain in those words. Boy, some things can't be bought, Crawford says quietly. Then what's the point of stealing them? The question cuts through Crawford's composure like a knife through flesh. Collins steps forward, his gun still drawn and ready. Governor, we can end this right here. In front of the whole town? Thomas gestures to the growing crowd of witnesses. Wouldn't be the first time, Collins replies coldly. Samuel steps between the men, his small frame dwarfed by their threatening shadows. Mama's last letter has instructions. If anything happens to me, Marshal Harrison gets everything, plus the names of everyone who helped. including folks who stayed quiet when they should have spoken up. The townspeople shift uncomfortably behind their windows, suddenly aware they're part of this reckoning. Crawford looks around at the faces watching from the shadows, calculating the cost of his choices. "What's in the letter, boy?" Samuel unfolds the final document, his mother's handwriting clear and strong. "She wrote it to you, Governor. Want me to read it out loud?" "No." But Samuel begins anyway, his young voice carrying across the evening air. "Governor Crawford, by the time you read this, my son will know the truth about his father. About what you took from our family. About the choice you gave Thomas 7 years ago." Thomas stiffens like he's been shot. "What choice?" Samuel continues reading with devastating clarity. "You told Thomas he could stand by me and lose his job, his land, and his life. Or he could walk away and keep his silence." The weight of this revelation hits Thomas like a physical blow. "You chose your own survival over ours. I don't blame you. But now my boy needs to know that some choices get a second chance." Samuel looks up at Thomas, then at Crawford. "She's giving you both one more choice, Papa. Same as before. Stand with us or stand aside. But this time," Samuel adds, folding the letter carefully, "the whole territory's watching." Thomas meets Samuel's eyes, seeing forgiveness and hope where he expected judgment. Thomas sets his rifle against the cabin wall and walks toward Crawford with determined steps. "7 years ago, I was a coward." Crawford tenses in his saddle. "Tom, don't do anything stupid. I let you destroy the woman I loved because I was afraid of losing what I had. You had a good life. A steady job. I had nothing." Thomas's voice grows stronger with each word. "Because I chose fear over love." Samuel watches his father approach the governor, pride and anxiety warring in his young chest. "But my son here just taught me something about second chances." Thomas stops directly in front of Crawford's horse. "I choose different this time. Think carefully, Tom. You got a boy to consider now." "I am considering him. I'm considering what kind of man I want him to think his papa is." Morrison steps forward nervously. "Governor, maybe we should negotiate." "With what?" Thomas asks. "The boys got all the evidence. The federal marshals got copies. And the whole town's watching." Crawford looks around at the faces emerging from hiding. Store owners, farmers, families, all the people he's governed through fear and corruption. "You people don't understand. I built this territory, created jobs, brought order. You stole from us," a voice calls from the crowd. "My farm," another shouts. "My brother's land." The crowd grows bolder as more voices join in. Samuel climbs onto a wooden crate, making himself visible to everyone. "My mama spent 7 years hiding because she told the truth about this man. She died because she wanted her son to grow up in a place where truth matters more than fear." His young voice carries surprising authority. "She didn't want revenge. She wanted justice. There's a difference." Crawford's shoulders slump as he realizes his empire of silence is crumbling. "What happens now?" he asks quietly. Thomas looks at Samuel, then back at Crawford. "Now you ride to the marshal's office and turn yourself in. You confess everything. You make restitution to the families you robbed. And if I don't..." Samuel speaks up. "Then Marshal Harrison comes here with federal deputies. And they take you in chains." Collins still holds his gun, but his hand wavers as the crowd surrounds them. "Jake," Crawford says quietly. "Put it away." "Governor. It's over." Morrison removes his badge and hands it to Thomas. "Reckon the territory needs a new sheriff." Thomas takes the badge, feeling its weight. "Reckon it needs honest leadership. From someone the people choose." He pins the badge to Samuel's small chest instead. "Temporary deputy. Until we can hold proper elections." Samuel touches the badge with wonder. "What would Mama think?" Thomas kneels beside his son, his eyes bright with unshed tears. She'd think we finally learned the difference between being afraid and being brave. As Crawford and his men prepare to ride toward justice, the townspeople emerge fully from the shadows, no longer afraid to stand in the light. Cemetery Hill overlooks the town like a watchful guardian. Thomas and Samuel walk between the weathered headstones, carrying wildflowers picked from the meadow that morning. "She's here," Samuel says, stopping beside a simple wooden cross. Thomas reads the marker aloud. "Emma Creek, beloved mother, died fighting for truth." "I carved it myself," Samuel says proudly. Thomas kneels beside the grave, placing his flowers next to Samuel's. "Emma, I'm sorry I failed you before. But I won't fail our boy." Samuel sits in the grass, his deputy badge catching the morning sunlight. "Papa, do you think she can hear us?" "I think your mama hears everything. Sees everything. Probably knew this day would come before any of us did." They sit in comfortable silence, watching the town below come alive with a new day. "Marshal Harrison came yesterday," Samuel says. "Crawford's gonna spend a long time in federal prison." "Good. Morrison too. And Collins. What about their families?" Thomas looks surprised by the question. "What about them? They didn't steal nothing. They didn't hurt Mama. Why should they suffer for what their men did?" The wisdom in the 7-year-old's words takes Thomas's breath away. "Your mama raised you right, son. She raised me to think about what's just, not just what feels good." They watch a wagon roll down Main Street, carrying a new family to town. "Territory's growing," Thomas observes. "Mama said good places grow when good people feel safe to stay." "Is this a good place now?" Samuel considers this seriously. "Getting better. Still got work to do." Thomas stands, extending his hand to his son. "Ready to go home?" "In a minute." Samuel turns back to the grave marker. "Mama, I found him. Just like you said I would. And you were right about second chances." He touches the wooden cross gently. "Papa's gonna teach me to read better, and write, and be a good lawman. Not because he has to, but because he wants to." Thomas wipes his eyes as Samuel continues. "And I'm gonna teach him about forgiveness. Because that's what you taught me." Samuel stands, taking his father's offered hand. "She's proud of you," Thomas says softly. "She's proud of us both." As they walk down the hill together, their shadows merge into one long silhouette against the morning sun. Behind them, the wind rustles through the wildflowers on Emma's grave, carrying the scent of new beginnings across the territory. In the distance, the sound of children playing echoes from the schoolyard, and somewhere a church bell rings, calling the community together for another day of honest work in a place where truth finally matters more than fear. The little boy found his papa. The papa found his courage. And Emma Creek's legacy of truth lives on in the hearts of all who remember that some fights are worth fighting, no matter how long they take to win.